straight over to Malcolm.
Thank you very much, and I'm delighted to be here sharing about the Digital Schools Award. And you're either watching this live or you're watching it in recording, but tonight we're going to be sharing about the experiences of some schools, as well as from my point of view as a validator. So for the purposes of just saying who am I am the Digital Schools Award validator. My name's Malcolm Wilson on the screen there. And you can find out loads and loads of things about the Digital Schools Award on the portal, which gives you access to all of the different awards. So I'm just going to go a very brief overview of all of the awards, all those that are applying to primary schools, because this session is specifically to primary schools. But there are other awards as well. But the main awards here that we're going to look at, we're going to very briefly just give you a teeny weeny bit of background, because there's slides here as well that we don't need to spend any time on, but it's just that they're there. And if you're watching this on video, then you can always pause the button and have a wee look at the detail that's on it. Actually, I'll just go back to that first slide, because one of the new things this year, apart from the new awards, is that we now have a date on the badges. So if we just have a quick look just for a second, each of these badges that you see here now has a date. And the reason for that is it gives the idea of when you got that award, because one of the new awards is the endorsement award, which we're going to hear about later from one of the schools that has got that. So that'll be Rushy Glen that has got that award, and they're going to talk about their experience of that. And that's after you've had a certain amount of time where you've already had the main award, and then several years later you then think, well, we've done lots, we want to share what we've done in that journey since then. So the idea of having these new awards, the date is part of that, so it gives you an indication of when you got the award. Now, this is one of the slides where I'm just going to very briefly, just as a reminder of where we've come from. So it's a collaboration between business, education and the government in order to try and support schools in what they're doing. There's no cost to schools at all in doing this, and it's entirely funded from the point of view of paying for all the website that's there, the validation exercise. There's nothing for the schools that have to pay at all. It's entirely supported. And here it's just a reminder that it's all tied in to what you would already be following. So whatever guidance you're following, then this is building on that and then elaborating on it, giving examples from it when we come into the portal, which I'll mention very shortly. So the main Digital Schools Award that you can see here, we've now got these new badges that are there. There's new certificates of achievement. They're all brand new this year as well. So as well as the new awards, it was also a chance to redesign the certificates and the badges, all of which, crucially, now have the date on them. So the process, regardless of which award it is the same. And if we look here just at the first one that we've got here, the Digital Wellbeing Award, then this is about, as it sounds, the cyber resilience and internet safety aspects of digital learning, and the focus on that. And we'll come to the process of the validation and the whole exercise of uploading and filling in what needs to be filled in, and then the validation meeting, the visit from someone like me. And we'll come to that shortly, but regardless of which one you go for, they all essentially have the same headings, but the focus for each is different. So if in this case you're doing digital wellbeing, then you're looking obviously at the aspects that are about that. So if it's leadership, it's about who's leading on that in the school. If it's about the learning part from the pupil's point of view, then it's about that focus. So the process though is identical regardless of which one you go for. The endorsement, which we're going to hear the experience of the school already, the plan is that after something like 3 years, and there's nobody going to come and say to you, except maybe the local authorities, so maybe Pam might say to you, look, you've had this for 5 years, then perhaps think about going for the endorsement, plan that in for some point in the future, because you're all changing. Every single school changes in their journey, what they're using and how they're using digital. And therefore it's a way of recognizing that change and how much has changed, not just in change in some cases, but vastly improved in how what it is that you're doing and how the pupils are reacting. The learning has changed, the teaching has changed, depending on what digital tools and resources you have access to. So when you're at that stage and you're thinking of going for the endorsement awards, then it's a new badge and a new certificate, just to say this is when we've got it and where we've got it. Now, Because many primary schools also sometimes have nurseries attached, and I'll just mention this one briefly, although the focus tonight is on primary, because there is the new ELC Digital Learning Through Play Award, which just launched just before the summer this year. So it's just to mention that if you do have somewhere in your school, if you do have nursery, for instance, and they've already got the main award, they don't need to go for this award. That's a question that gets asked often. This is purely for those who haven't already got an award and they would like to go for it. If you already have the Digital Schools Award as a school, which includes the nursery, then they can go for this award should they choose to do so, but there is no requirement to do so. It was just that previously the Digital Schools Award very much had a focus on the curricular resources that were aimed at primary school, and the language and the documentation wasn't specific to the nursery. So that's why I'm mentioning that now, that you may well have an ELC near you or within your establishment that may be interested in doing this. And the language now of it, everything is focused on everything that they need to do in terms of the nursery or the early learning centre.
Yeah, and I've just popped into the chat, Malcolm, that we're planning on running a group with Eva from Education Scotland specifically for ELC people. So I'd put an email out to heads. I appreciate it's not all heads on the call, but if you are in a school, in a primary with a nursery class and you are interested in that, just drop me an email and you can become part of that group. Probably not starting until January, so you've got a little bit of time there, but I just wanted to mention that.
That's not, of course, to stop anyone applying, should they wish to do so and they think they're ready. You don't need to wait for the course.
Absolutely not.
The Equitable Creative Coding was another award that was just launched just before the summer. And because tonight we're talking about primary, you may be aware that there was a coding award. It was called the Computational Thinking Award, but it was only available to secondaries up until just before this summer. And this one is now launched specifically to address the fact that it was missing for both nurseries and primary schools. So therefore this one addresses that and in fact covers all stages now. So it replaces the secondary only one with equitable creative coding. And it covers the unplugged type activity as well as the traditional thing that you might talk about as being for coding. So whether it was devices or not devices, and it involves the computational thinking, the language, it involves things that you're probably doing already. And again, the focus on this is then on the coding elements, computational thinking and coding. So if that's something that sounds like you're interested in that, then there's a badge specifically for that, and there's a new badge, a new certificate rather. This is also new, but not quite there yet. So it's in pilot phase, I believe, still, the Digital Educator Awards, but it's coming broadly across the country. There's been quite a number of people that have gone through this pilot. It's just to make you aware of that, and that will be across all sectors, but it's for the individual. And there's different stages, levels, if you like to call it. It's not about you go from one to the other. It depends on your role. So Pam in a local authority, for instance, or someone who's leading on digital, as some of you, I'm sure, listening to this will be, then you will have a different award that you can go for, whereas someone who is a practitioner will have a different award for them. Of course, you could have both if you have both roles. So that's coming. It's not there just yet. So, as I said, all of the awards, regardless of which one you go for, all have the same process. And I'm just going to very quickly go through that process. All of them appear on the same website. So you go to the one website, the Digital Schools Awards website, and from there, once you register, then you choose from a drop-down as to which award you're aiming for. Now, because the Equitable Creative Coding Award and the Digital Learning Through Play Awards were new, they're now on there. But a question that's popped up, and so I'll address it now, is especially from nurseries, early learning centres, where they already have been as part of something else, and they may well be sharing the same seed code. And it's just to be aware that if that is the case, then you can simply register, and all you have to do is put a space or a line or a hashtag or something between digits, and that will get it in as a registering as a new account. So it's still that it retains the seed code. So basically it's one registration for the establishment, and that means that if, for instance, a member of staff has registered previously and then leaves and another member of staff comes along, then it's easy to go on there, find that they've already registered, but you can't access it, so you simply get in touch with the Digital Schools Award. They will give you access to what's already been uploaded previously, as has often happened, where someone has moved on to another post somewhere else. And it then means that it's tied to the establishment, not to the individual. So when you've gone on, you choose from that drop-down list, and the drop-down list then changes what you then see. So if you've chosen a particular award, you'll then see that the headings then change appropriate to that particular award. So depending on whether it's the main award, Digital Schools Award, or whether it's Equitable Creative Coding or the Digital Wellbeing, then the headings are sort of the same for them all, but the documentation expectation is different for each one. And it gives advice, it gives guidance about what sorts of things you might look for under each of these headings. And then it also gives suggestions of what you might upload. So there's basically a place for you to add a narrative, a story basically to tell what your journey is like and how you think you fit each of the criteria. And then somewhere we can upload things. And that can be very small number, or it can be none at all if you've got everything as links, for instance, onto something else. So it might be onto Padlet, or it might be onto a PowerPoint shared somewhere, or it might be onto a Sway. So if that's the case, then that's what all you do is add that link in. So once you've done that and you've gone through the whole thing, then the website itself will then essentially tell you when you've already completed all the sections that you need to complete. Now, nobody expects, although it's got 100% in the green writing, if you're good enough eyesight to see that on the slide, nobody expects you have to get 100% of anything. For this, to get the award, it's about 70, 75% or something that you've got to have got everything to a certain level in order to then go for the validation. Because every school has got a different level of their journey, but that doesn't stop you getting the award, because it's recognising where you're at and how you're getting on with what you have. Because every school doesn't have the same resource, and how you use it, of course, changes anyway. So when you've filled in all the boxes, you've said, here's where I think I am, here's where our school or establishment is at in terms of this levels, if you like. For each of the statements, it says, we think we're like this, or we think we're like this. You tick the appropriate box, and when the website says, right, you've done enough now, then it will go green. So it tells you you're ready now to apply for validation. So at the validation stage, when you think you're at that stage, then having completed the framework under these headings, as you can see here, so the leadership and vision, the learning and teaching, student digital competence, and that's for one of the awards. Then when you've done that and it's changed to green, as you can see on the different statements, you can choose the different statements. When it changes to green, you're then going to hit the button that says, I'd like to be validated now. So when you're then at that stage, you've clicked on the button that says, please validate us. Then the administrators of the Digital Schools Award will then get in touch with one of the validators. Now, if it's your first time getting a validation, if you've never done any of the awards, you'll be allocated a validator, and it might be me or it might be one of the team. And if you have, however, previously had an award, the likelihood is it will be assigned to the same validator. So you're not having to tell the story again. You're basically adding to what you've already said. That validator will already remember where they have talked to you. They'll have the note of what you've done. So you've built up some sort of relationship already, and therefore, when it comes to the next award, whichever award that might be, it's likely to be the same person. Unless, of course, you think, oh, there's no chance that I want that, Malcolm, in which case you can ask absolutely to have a different validator, and that's perfectly fine. We're all warm and friendly folk, but sometimes you just think, no, don't like that person, and that's okay. So the preparation then is, once you get that button where you've clicked on it, the administration team alerts a validator, the validator again gets in touch with you. And then it's a case of just negotiating a date and a time that suits you and the validator. In most cases, in my experience, it's usually around about a fortnight, but it depends. So that it might be that, for instance, you're near the end of a term, in which case you might want to push it into the new term. Sometimes, of course, you're desperate to get it before the end of a school year, for instance. That's a very challenging time because lots of schools try and finish things off and wait too late sometimes to actually hit the validation button. So there's no validators left with any spare time at the end of term. So if you are thinking of doing it, I know we're only at the beginning of the year almost, but if you were thinking of doing this, then If you're wanting it before the end of a term or before the end of a school year, then do hit the validation button. You can always have it then booked in for several weeks in advance to give you time to do whatever you think you might want to do. And when it comes to that, the sorts of things you might want to do is simply preparing a timetable of who the validator is going to meet. So when the validator gets in touch with you, when a date is agreed, then the validator will ask you, well, could you tell us then who we think we're going to meet? And ideally, the validator will want to meet somebody who's in a leadership position. Actually, one of the things I should have said right at the outset is that at the moment, and probably for the foreseeable future, the validations are entirely done online. So there's no in-person, no one's going to visit your school. It's all done online, which makes it really simple and straightforward in some respects. And it's a validation for the Digital Schools Awards. Of course, you're all expert in using this nowadays. It wasn't the case before COVID, of course, but for many now it's much more familiar. And therefore, it makes it easier. So the validator will look for a timetable of who you're going to visit. So a leadership person, head teacher, deputy, and somebody who has the leadership on digital. So if you're here because you are the digital lead, then it'll be you. And a couple of colleagues, depending on the size of the school, a couple of colleagues would be nice, and some pupils. And for many schools, that's pupil digital leaders. For other schools where they don't have pupil digital leaders, then it might be just a representation. It's entirely up to you. But that allows the validator to ask questions of them. So in my case, when I'm speaking to schools, I don't want you to go into any trouble of preparing presentations. You've already uploaded all your documentation into the portal, remember, by this time. So the validator will have spent time going through all of that material, so they'll know the story you're telling. What they want to get is the conversation with people, your colleagues, the pupils, to get a sense of what that feels like. Because you'll have shared what you've done, but it's difficult sometimes to upload something that says, and you know, the impact. It tells you how exciting, how impactful it is on learners, because that's something that sometimes only comes across in that conversation. So that's the purpose of the validation. It's a very important part of the whole process. But in essence, by the time you get to that point, you've already said, I think I'm ready. So the validator is doing exactly that. They're validating it, and they're then going to write a report. So they're going to flesh out what you've already uploaded with the experiences, what it means to your colleagues, to the pupils, to parents and carers, depending on who it is that you have speaking to the validator. So on this slide, it says, if you're going to share resources, beforehand, you've probably already done that beforehand, then it doesn't matter the tool, as long as the validator can get access to it. If you've already uploaded it as a PowerPoint or a PDF into the portal, that's perfectly fine. If, as some schools like to, they share on a Sway, or they share on a OneNote, or a Wakelet, or Padlet, or a whole host of other means, that whatever tool is, doesn't matter. As long as the validator can get access to that, they'll look at that resource the way that you've presented it. When it actually comes to the validation visit itself, as I've right to come here, then just as it says here, then it's about that conversation. So that after the conversation, then you'll have a chance to share about things. Once you've heard from the validator, and the validator has a chance to ask you questions about the things, and they're not trying to pick fault, we're not trying to pick holes in anything at all, we're trying to bring out what you're actually doing. What my experience has been, and I've spoken to many, many schools, is my experience is that people tend to upload and share about the things previously, the things that they think are different and that stand out. And the things that the validator brings out in the conversation are the things that you do every day and you just forget about because they're just second nature to you. So it's bringing out all of that and bringing out things where pupils couldn't get on unless they were using digital. And sometimes the pupils that have had most impact is for those pupils where digital has really opened up learning for them, and it's having that conversation sometimes just to bring that out. So the validation visit really brings out a whole load of things, and then the next stage is for the validator then to write a report, and that will be uploaded by the validator onto the portal. That will automatically alert the administrators of the Digital Schools Award that the report is there, waiting for them then to send an email to the school to confirm you now have the award, here's the certificate, here's the report, and here's the badge that you can add onto your website and onto email signatures, should you choose to do so, or anywhere else that you would like to do so. The report, of course, as part of that email, you're encouraged to share the good news that you've got this award with the whole school community, to let them know, just what success looks like, and the fact that somebody from outside has recognised it, because that's the purpose of the award. Whichever award it is, it's about recognising and celebrating what you have done, and having someone from outside looked at that and seen, yes, this is impressive. This is not what's happening everywhere else. This is worth sharing about. So it's nice, I think, from the feedback that I get, it's nice for schools to have that recognition, and then you can celebrate the fact that you can share that with your school community and wider, should you choose to do so. Now, the last 2 slides. If you go on to the Digital Schools Award website, there's a page on there that has a map, and that map simply shows the locality of schools who have already got any of these awards. So whichever school might be near you, for instance, you might go onto there and think, I wonder who else has got one. And the other reason for going there is that it will then identify which schools have said yes when they're asked the question by the validator, if they're happy to be put forward as a mentor school. And all that means is that you're happy. First of all, the mentor has recognised that you have the capacity to do so, but you're given the opportunity, should you choose to say yes, to, if a school wishes to get in touch with you, that you're allowing for that to go on the website to say that you're happy to be contacted. It doesn't commit you to anything else beyond that. It might be that when a school does contact you, it's a really busy time for you. You don't have time to support them at that time, and it's perfectly fine to be a mentor school, but not have time at that moment in time. It's just that a school can feel more comfortable contacting you to ask the question. And for most schools, in my experience, being a mentor school simply means they speak to someone they already know, probably. It might be down the road. It might be someone that they knew from another school from a while back. And they speak to someone and say, what was it like? What sorts of things did you do? What sorts of things did you share? What sorts of things did the validator ask? And then that's it. That's just a simple conversation, having that conversation, and that's all that a mentor school is usually expected, just to be able to say, yes, I can give you that sort of advice. I have been aware of one school where they chose, not asked to, but they chose, they wanted to support a school that was just down the road from them. So they're quite nearby. And over a whole school year, they just had kind of meetings from time to time, and they just helped guide that other school through getting the award. That's not the expectation, though. But if you choose to do that, of course, that's very welcome by the other school, I'm very certain. So the last slide that I've got here is simply a wee reminder of the different badges. And I'm now going to hand back to Pam, because I believe there's a school ready to speak. And I shall I take my slides off, or what would you like to do, Pam?
I think if you take your slides off, that would be great, Malcolm, because I know I've spoken to the folk, and I think they're just going to talk, but they want to show some of the things, some of their evidence, I think, if I'm right. So thank you so much for that, Malcolm. That was really helpful, just going through all the different awards, and a really good point about the awards being the same kind of format all the way through. So for those of you who are here to hear about the endorsement award, for those that are here for the digital wellbeing, it's good to know that the kind of format is the same, whatever one you're going for. I also wanted to mention that in the past we have had groups of schools who've said, no, we want to go for our Digital School Award this year, and we've held a series of sessions throughout the session, a series of meetings throughout the session that have allowed people to come together. So we've got a team where we've put evidence and suggestions and other people's slides so they can see the types of things that people were looking for. So if that's something that off the back of this session tonight you would be interested in, drop me an email and we'll see if we can get enough people interested to do that. But we're going to start with the Digital Endorsement Award. And I think it's always good to start with something that's new, and it's fantastic. I'm delighted that Rashalee have got that just in June, I believe it was. You can tell me. Yep, nodding their heads there. Yes, thank you, Jill and Erin. So we're going to pass over to them, and they're going to tell us about how they managed to get that, which would be fantastic. So over to you guys.
Hi, can you see my screen, Pam? Oh,
something was coming up on the screen there. And back to just, there we go. Is it an Adobe Express? That's it.
yes.
Yes, perfect. There we've got
Perfect.
it.
Hello, everybody. We applied for the Digital Schools Endorsement Award last year, and were awarded it in June. So kind of like what Malcolm was saying there, it's kind of follows on from having the Digital Schools Award previously, and ours is basically evidence to say that we've continued to trying to maintain that high standard and working hard to share it across the school. So we got our first award in 2020 and then this award in May. So we basically thought we would just take you through each of the criteria, the areas that were on the award, and just talk you through some of the evidence that we submitted. We found it quite easy to go through, and it was really self-explanatory, and on the award it kind of guides you with examples to include, didn't it? Which made it really user-friendly. So the first section was leadership and vision, and our evidence that we submitted was just that digital learning was high on our school improvement plan. We did lots of CPD, and it was offered to share practice among staff. And a big thing was our pupils showing that leadership as well. So we would use like buddying up opportunities for older children to share that with younger children, and take forward some different initiatives.
Yeah.
Is there anything I missed?
Definitely like what Malcolm was saying about, you know, it's your day-to-day stuff, you know, and what we did was we kind of, myself, Erin and our head teacher kind of sat down and thought, right, well, what are we doing about this? What evidence can we pull? What things do we do day to day? So actually it was a real team effort between the three of us, because, you know, Rachel, our head teacher, knew things that could be included far easier than for Erin and I to think of. And we obviously knew the kind of practice day to day, what we do in the classroom, sort of thing.
The next area was career-long professional learning. We also found that a lot of the headings kind of tied in with each other. So there was a lot of things that you were trying not to repeat the evidence. So one of the first things we put in this section was we had made some how-to videos during lockdown to share that with kids and to share it with families to help them adjust to new online learning, as we all did. And those videos have actually been really useful, because there's still things that people will maybe go, oh gosh, how did I use that again? Was there not a video sent on Seesaw? Or we'll kind of look through Teams. So they've been really useful to have kind of a log of. Seesaw is now used throughout the school, again, every single day. Just part of daily practice without even thinking about it. All our homework's done on Seesaw, which the kids are great with. They can really just run with that themselves. When we got our Chromebooks rolled out, we got in touch with Google, and they did a training session for all our staff, which was really helpful, especially for staff that are maybe less confident. It kind of put everyone at that level playing field and just made everyone feel really at ease. QR codes are used for feedback and to share learning. I'll talk about that and again in a wee second. And our management team took part in a Microsoft training, because a lot of our kind of newsletters and information that goes out to parents is all shared on Sway and things now. A lot of that, really all of that's digital, and shared on Seesaw. So is there anything else I've missed?
And the school data that we use a lot of school data, like every school, I suppose, and our head teacher and our deputy then gave us training on how to manipulate the data to get, you know, whatever evidence or whatever we're looking for out of the data.
Yep.
Which is
Analyse it.
But the website's really useful because when you're looking at your different criteria, they have, you know, they give you a wee bit of an explanation what they're looking for you to look for, and it gives you examples of evidence. So really, when we were going through each section, we were looking at that straight away and thinking, right, what's that actually asking us for? Where do we have evidence of this? And then we looked at the evidence, and actually we found we had loads. The limit is that you know, you can only submit so much evidence per one, and each criteria will tell you how much evidence you can submit. So it's then picking the right evidence to back up what you're saying. And you can do that, you know, through like web links or through, you know, just uploading documents,
Pictures,
pictures,
photographs.
videos, things like that. So it was just trying to pick, you know, as Erin was saying, they kind of all do interlink. So you're wanting to pick things that will show the whole range of what you do as a school throughout all of the criteria.
Yep. Digital learning teaching. Again, as we said before, iPads and Chromebooks used daily to share learning, support learning. They're part of everyone's day-to-day. Literacy is really our big support with even just typing tools, being able to support children for literacy, talk to text. There was a period of time where we used Clicker 7, and then we've kind of fallen away from that now, but even having all that to kind of come back to was quite a good reflection as we were going through the award. QR codes to share feedback. So I've tried to include a picture here, although it's not great. I feel that especially when you're marking writing, it can be really laborious and feel like it takes forever. And actually, these QR codes have been a real game changer. And all the staff use these now, whereas they just stick a QR code in and voice record children's feedback. So they find that really engaging and really exciting. And it's also much less time, especially marking writing. I'm sure all the upper school people will feel me in that. So yeah, that was a really easy and useful tool that we've picked up and love here. Microbits, we got the rollout from them last year, and the kids have been experimenting with the kind of coding workshops that Microbit were running, which was really interesting. And the children creating their strong passwords for Glow, because obviously every year they have to go and refresh them. So just having bit input on that and reminders about that, I think was really all we talked about there. And all our planning, so all our teaching and learning planning is all done online, and all our tracking's done online. So I don't think we uploaded that as evidence, but was it screenshots? Did we upload?
We uploaded screenshots.
Just to say that's how we plan for our learning and teaching. Anything I missed there? I don't think so.
No, is it?
Resources and infrastructure. We just talked about the devices that we use and what we've made use of in the school. We got new interactive whiteboards. We invested in more iPads, which means we have about a 1:2 ratio for devices to children in each class. And again, during COVID, kind of showing that longevity with the award was that families that were struggling to access devices during COVID and after COVID, when a lot of things were still online, more so than they were before, we rolled out devices to hit kind of old laptops and things that, which meant that they could access them at home. And evidence for that one, we just included like an audit of the devices we've got and licensing documentation for different websites.
Yeah, and that was what was quite hard, because we got our Digital Schools Award just right at the start of lockdown. We had a meeting arranged for our validator to come out, but then it had to be changed to online. So it was then, obviously at that point we hadn't have done all the online learning things. So it was when we were doing this award, a lot of the stuff that we then did during COVID, all of our online learning that could all then be included because we hadn't used that evidence yet, but trying to remember what did we do for this and what did we do for that, you know, because you just get so used to it in the time, and then of course now we're a bit more back to normal, so you forget what you've done.
Feels like a lifetime ago.
Yes.
Innovations and initiatives. We talked about using digital data as staff in informed learning, teaching. All our attendance and tracking is done online and monitored. As I said before, our newsletters, Mentimeters are used to collect data, and that's used with kids, it's used with staff, any surveys kind of that go out. A few classes were piloting an AI generator to support literacy, which was really interesting, and it was worked really well. I think that's something that we'll be continuing to use and rolling out across the school. And differentiated learning and teaching, I think. As you can see the bits that repeat again and again. Overcoming challenges, we talked about lack of confidence for parents and some staff during lockdown, and coming back into schools, and how we overcame that challenge was creating the videos, sharing hints and tips. Teachers would phone parents who were kind of struggling or help them to set up devices, and we arranged one-to-one meetings to help them get access to online learning. And then parental engagement, just trying to get parents involved in as much of the school community as we can. And Parent Portal and Parent Pay have been resulted in a much higher engagement. We've got more parents' nights appointments being taken up, and more children attending school trips. So they're big positives. With everything being online, it's obviously just much more accessible for parents, and you can keep track of things that are happening in the school. And the part that said other evidence, we just talked about our digital leaders going out to visit other schools and help them to use Seesaw, and just talk through with teachers how we used it in our class and kind of help them brainstorm about how they might use it for their schools. So that was, have I missed anything? That's kind of how we went through the award. I hope that it lets you see that it was really quite straightforward, and it was a lot of your day-to-day things. I don't feel that we've done anything majorly over and above that we're totally groundbreaking. It's just trying to condense it all, and as Jill said, make it fit in the right sections and link it as best you can. And working as a team definitely helps.
Yeah, for sure.
But please feel free to get in contact with us if there's anything that we can help with, or I've put our email addresses on there that you're welcome to get in touch if there's anything we can do to help.
Thank you so much, Jill and Erin. And if I could just add on to that, when I said that all the headings were the same about all the awards, of course, this is the exception, because you're not having to repeat what you've already repeated. It's about the change of what's happened since. So that was a perfect example. Well done. And well done in being one of the first schools to get that award, because it was just introduced before the summer. So there's not many schools that have it.
So we were very lucky to get you to come and talk about it.
Exactly. The other wee thing, just to pick up on something that you made a good point about, it was the amount of evidence. This was also a new portal. So the website was completely redesigned, and part of that was back in January. Part of that was to limit the amount of stuff, the evidence that people uploaded, because if you're given an empty box, you feel you've got to fill it. And therefore, to try and avoid people loading too much stuff and thinking you've got to put loads of stuff up, it was to try and reduce that level. So you are limited now to a smaller number of things uploaded. However, if you share a Sway or Padlet or something like that, then obviously there is no limit. But it's to try and reduce the pressure on people to fill the space, so that there is in fact a limit on there. So I'm glad you pointed that out. So thank you very much.
No, thank you. Having small boxes for evidence seems really constraining, is that the right word, at the time, but actually it helps you try and pick out your best quality evidence to put forward, so it does work.
That's great. Thank you so much. Thanks for mentioning Parents Portal as well. That's always an unusual one for people to mention, but so critical in terms of what you were saying there about getting more folk through the door for Parents' Night and stuff like that. Can I ask, did you use parents to book their online? Did they book their appointments through that?
Yep.
Did you use the booking system? Great. So it's all these little things, these little hints and tips for people to go, oh yeah, when we got it, we weren't doing that. So yeah, no, thank you so much. I'm going to throw it open. If anybody wants to join in and ask a question, please pop your hand up. There we go. Kirsten, turn your camera on and go for it.
Oh, hang on. Just thank you so much. That was really interesting. I just wanted to ask about the QR codes. Is there a particular, well, how do you do that? That looks such a worthwhile thing to do.
So I'm pretty sure it's .com. I'll just send in the chat the website that I use. Quigger, I think is how it's pronounced. And you just log in with Glow. And it basically, you can generate a sheet of blank QR codes. There's different sizes to pick, but it then just prints you off a blank sheet, and you cut out the square, stick it in a jotter, and when you scan it, you can upload different things on it. So like the children could upload there, like I don't know if you saw in that one, the handwriting is sometimes a bit of an issue, as I'm sure again we can all relate to during writing, but I found it quite useful that the kids could then record it, so that when I'm marking it, you're not having to say to them, oh, what does that say? It's giving them a bit of ownership. So that's the one I've used, but I know that there's quite a few generators out there, but that works through Glow and it's all free. So
amazing. That's great. Thanks so much.
You're welcome. Yeah, so it prints you off do you want me to share my screen, Pam? Is that easier to show people? Let's see if I can. Okay. I need you to go away from there. Let's try that. So there we are there. So Quigger.education, sorry, and then when you go to sign in, you can go with your Microsoft login. So I'll just log in with my Glow, and that's it there. You don't need to pay for any of the subscription. You just go to stickers. Again, you don't need to buy them. It just gives you a sheet like this, and when you click generate stickers, it'll download the document for you, and you can open it up straight away. It emails it to you as well. That's what that ping is. And they're all blank. The only downside is they only last 90 days, which is a little bit frustrating, but to be honest, you're using it for that quick feedback there and then, so it doesn't need to have the longevity when you're using it straight away.
Thanks so much.
Send this.
Smashing. Okay, thank you. I think we have to give you some rounds of applause there, so some claps, some virtual claps. Thank you so much for that. And you know, thanks so much for sharing your email. It makes such a difference if people are willing to chat. I know we have some folk on here who are definitely interested in going for the that endorsement award. So thank you for sharing. Very much appreciated. So you can leave now. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thanks.
It was nice to see you all.
Bye.
Bye. Okay. So we're going to move on to the Digital Wellbeing Award now. So Laura, there she is. Right on cue, popped her camera on. Fabulous.
Right,
Okay,
hang on, let me
Laura.
just share.
Get yourself sorted.
My Wi-Fi is a bit funny today, so if it's if I disappear, I'll try my best to actually come back. Hang on, let me just move this out of the way. So we, very similar timeline actually to Ashley, we got our Digital Wellbeing Award just at the end of last year, which was something we'd been talking about for a while. I think probably like most people, we were not intimidated by it, but we saw it as quite a daunting thing. When you read all of the information, you do kind of think, okay, well, it's a lot of very specific information that you need to have on there. But then when you take a step back and you actually think about what you're doing, it definitely, like you were saying at the start, you're kind of thinking of the things you're doing every day that you don't really consider as working towards an award. That was probably the biggest thing for us. So we've got a working party firstly for these for digital schools, for just digital technologies in general. And of course we started with the audit, which is always the best place to begin, because then you can actually see where you need to go. So we got our first award, our Digital Skills Award in 2021, and then we got this award, like I said, at the end of last year. So from doing the audit, we ended up identifying kind of key points that we needed to work on just to be confident in going for the award ourselves. So we weren't in a point where we're thinking we were totally unprepared, which was quite nice. I think sometimes when you do the audit, you go, okay, we're a bit further along than we actually thought we were. We also looked at a lot of our evidence from our Digital Skills Award, which I think was quite important because we were able to see, well, actually there were strengths already there and already in that. So we weren't really starting from scratch. We were going back to that evidence and saying, well, we've already been able to do this. We can already evidence a lot of the things. So we wanted to focus on whole staff approach, our digital policy, just kind of updating it. It was a little bit, needing a wee bit of a revamp just with things that had come in, involving the children a little bit more, and parental engagement / support. So that was all things that came from doing our audit. So the first one that we were looking at was a whole school staff or whole staff approach. So we were all teaching internet safety, but I think our big difference was cyber resilience. We wanted everyone to really focus in on the differences between both of them and just making sure that it was consistent across the school rather than it just being a one-off lesson and then we move on. So we ended up working it into our curriculum plan, so everyone does it actually at this time of year, everyone's doing it specifically, and then obviously it's integrated then for the rest of the year. So there's specific lessons or resources that we try to use with every class, and then from there you can kind of reference it back obviously for the rest of the year. So we have these cyber resilience planners which were created, and we have these for first level, early level, second, of course, the whole way through. And they are different for each year group, so they're not repeating even though they're still in first. So I think this one's primary 2. And then when we get to primary 3 and 4, it kind of changes. It goes on to the Think You Know resources and all of the different aspects. So we're using all the things that are recommended. And this just made it a lot easier for our staff as well, because you're not then scouring the internet to try and find what best fits. It's kind of there. And these are reviewed, so if anything's needing added to, then it does get added to, but we all have that kind of clearer line of thinking. This is also all online, so we can go in and see that people are, like, what they've covered in previous years, which has been quite useful in terms of, you know, if you've got primary 3s this year, you can go back and say, right, okay, they did cover this already, and I can go back or just remind them, or I need to introduce it. So we have these for all of the year groups, which was something that our validator was quite keen on. They quite liked them. I can't take credit for this, I did not make them, but they are very useful to have. Then we wanted to look at our policy, so we needed to make sure it was included in digital wellbeing, was included in our health and wellbeing policy. So it was a very small change, like literally just added this little paragraph into our wellbeing policy, so it was more across the school rather than, I think, we didn't have the mindset of we just teach internet safety, but we sort of got ourselves more into the mindset of thinking when they're on the Chromebooks, you are always reminding them of digital wellbeing and cyber, you are reminding them of all these things all the time. It was just to be a bit more kind of explicit with the language we were using as well. We also had to update our digital policy because it hadn't really been tweaked in a couple of years, probably since we had done the award. So going through and just adding things about, you know, having Chromebooks in, if there's been any developments, so we'd put in a little part about AI and just some extras, you know, if they're using any different apps, if they're using any other things that we hadn't really used before. Again, things you probably, or we were already doing, we just needed to tweak, really. It wasn't necessary. The hard thing with cyber resilience is it's changing so often, and internet safety is changing so often that you literally could update it every day if you wanted to, but there has to be a cut-off at some point. So I think our aim is we'll just kind of look at it maybe at the end of the year, and if there has been any major developments, we'll look at it, but you can't be updating it obviously every week. But it did need just that little bit of a refresh just to talk about what we were doing and things that are being covered. One of the things that we spoke about when we did our first award was our digital leaders were all from one age group originally, so they were all from primary 6 at the time that we did our validation, and it wasn't necessarily picked up on as a negative, because obviously that's just how some schools are structured. That's absolutely fine. It was just noted as a question of, is it just the older ones that have these kind of digital skills, or is it with everyone? Now, it was COVID, so we weren't allowed to mix it anyway, so it was quite one of those ones. And now we have parliaments instead that are 1 to 7. So we have a digital leaders parliament, which is from primary 1 all the way through to primary 7, which was quite useful because they were able to then create an assembly, which they did a kind of internet safety afternoon, cyber resilience afternoon on our STEM day, where they just decided everything they wanted everyone to do. So obviously Kahoot was involved, because why would it not be if they're the ones that are making it? And for the little ones, they ran an internet safety mascot competition. So actually having the different age groups was quite useful in that sense, because the little ones were able to say, well, we'd like to do this, which was useful in getting that pupil voice in there. And they really focused on the difference between cyber resilience and internet safety, which, if you're going to go for this award, that is something that was asked in the meeting as well. They were asked to kind of explain the differences if they could. And again, it's probably something you already are doing. It's just been really explicit with that language with them, which we spoke to staff about. And we also did a little staff training session on that. Just, again, all things that were involved in the lessons, but just specifically saying, make sure you are telling them the difference with how to deal with a problem and how to avoid a problem, essentially, if it were to occur. And we also did a pupil survey, which the pupil survey probably wasn't necessary. I think that was a last minute sort of panic stations of how are we going to evidence they do know this, even though they'd played the Kahoot and everything. We just wanted that little bit of extra information, which again probably didn't need to do that, but it was just better to have more than not enough. And a big one for us was parental engagement. I think probably like most schools, we see challenges with things coming into school that have happened at home online, and that was a big thing for us. We didn't want to get this digital wellbeing award and still be not that you don't still have them, of course you do, but we just wanted to see where parents were coming from and where carers were coming from and what they were seeing at home, because obviously we know children are able to sit in front of us and say they know about internet safety and cyber resilience, but actually how can we link that up a little bit more? So we also got the police in to do a talk with our older ones, our 5 to 7s, just really to kind of solidify what we had been saying as well and just improve the community links. But we put a survey out to parents, which was very interesting, just asking that kind of, we did use the audit as a sort of base for what we were looking for information on. So things about like the kind of national guidance. We asked if they were aware what learning apps children were using and if they were aware what apps and sites children were using at home. Quite a big difference in between those two questions, and really just were asking for quite honest feedback on what they would like support with. And that then allowed us to create our little, it's again, not much, it's on the website if anyone wants to look at it, but just a whole list of websites really that addressed what the parents and carers had been talking about. I think we were quite surprised with the survey results. I think sometimes we were kind of going, of course that would be known, or of course parents would know how to do this, of course adults would know how to do this, but actually a lot of the time people didn't maybe know how to put parental controls on an iPad or how to check, like people just didn't know, and we were probably being a little bit naive to it, thinking that people did. I'm not saying it stopped all of our issues with things happening online, but it has definitely given us a kind of tool to give to adults at home to say, these things are here, so if you ever do need a bit of support, and again, it was specifically tailored to what they had said to us. So we tried to link it as much as we can. Again, you could do a survey every year and you could update it every year if you wanted to, but for now we're going to stick with what's on there, and we probably will end up doing another one maybe next year in a couple of years just to see how things have changed. But that was probably the one thing for us that was really important. It just gave us a sort of different view of things and a different side to things that maybe you don't see as much in school, because obviously the links are, you are needing to link it up to the children doing this all together, not just in school. And then the last kind of additional things that we went for were, like I said, staff training on the difference between internet safety and cyber resilience. This was quite key, and we just took a little register as evidence. Nothing major, literally just got people to sign on a bit of paper, old school, and took a picture and uploaded it. And then we got our children to speak with the evaluator and assessor, which I know they do that anyway. Made sure we had different ages in this time, and they all had a little chunk they wanted to say. You know what they're like with PowerPoints and sways, they love making them. So they all had a bit they wanted to say, but actually they ended up just answering the questions, and it was a very relaxed, I think they were quite nervous, and I was quite nervous and apprehensive about it, but actually it's a very relaxed situation, and the validators do want you to do well. And if the children were kind of hesitating a little bit, you know, they were guiding them because they could see from the evidence that the children did know it. So, you know, they were guiding them along the right path and along the right sort of lines with things. But yes, it's, I think, one of those ones that seems very, I said, daunting at the time, but actually you're probably doing a lot of it anyway. And anything that we did need to do, we just identified the gaps from that initial audit, which was very helpful.
Fantastic. Thank you, Laura. That was great. Malcolm, do you have anything to add?
I just popped into the chat box just in case people aren't following it along there. But one of the things that I look for as a validator for this particular award, you identified absolutely perfectly, which was that progression, that it's not just for Christmas, it's not just for Safer Internet Day. And that if I was looking for a progression, as Pam has pointed out, there is a local authority progression planner pathway, and therefore that could be a centre of a resource. But if some schools, if you're watching this from elsewhere that might be watching this, there is a resource that I've certainly come across and heard schools use, which is called Project Evolve, created by the same folk that run the Safer Internet Day. It's entirely free. Why it's perhaps overlooked by many is you have to sign into it to see it, so that the member of staff signs in, gets access to the resource, and it's from nursery all the way through to S6. But it gives a progression of all the different things you want to cover, but with age-specific activities for each of the things that you keep revisiting every year. But all the activities are then age-specific. There are lots of other resources, of course, as you've identified, and thank you very much for that. Sounded great. So glad to hear that it was a relaxing exercise.
I'm going to throw it open again and see if anybody has any questions for Laura. Feel free to just stick your hand up, turn your camera on, your mic on.
Did such a good job, Laura, that nobody's asking any questions. That's it.
Ideal. Absolutely, that's brilliant. Well, again, Laura, huge thank you for sharing and for putting your email address up there and saying, you know, people will see you. So a lovely round of applause for Laura. Thank you so much. And if you do have any questions, she has very kindly shared her email, so please do get in touch. But yeah, thanks, Laura, and you're free to go. Bye. Fabulous. Okay, so we're going to push on, and I'm delighted that Sarah from Lancraigs is here. If you want to pop your camera on, Sarah, that would be fab. Give everyone a wave. Thank you. So Sarah, very kindly, very last minute as well, so thank you for that, Sarah, has agreed to come along and talk about the Digital Skills Award. And again, at the end, any questions, we'll take them. So I'm just going to pass over to Sarah.
Okay. I feel I'm going to repeat quite a lot of what other people have said already, so I apologise in advance. I'm just going to share my screen and just kind of talk you through one of the PowerPoints that we uploaded as evidence during our journey, just to kind of cover some examples of the things that we included in the evidence. I wish the cap on the amount of stuff you could upload had happened when we applied, because we uploaded quite a lot of stuff. So that would have been great if that happened a little bit earlier, but hey ho. Let me see, what am I looking to share? Let's go. Is my screen sharing? Nope.
It's coming through now.
There we go. Now, don't be put off by the 42 slides at the bottom here. I promise it's not all information. So our journey, I'll just go back to the very, very start to kind of give a time scale of how long it kind of took us and where the school started. So in 2019-20, when I was kind of appointed digital learning champion, and it was pretty much, Sarah, you like digital things, so you're it. That's kind of how it started, which was fine because I'm the person that just likes, oh, something new comes in and I'm like, oh, let's find out about that. So that's where it kind of started. And then, of course, we then hit into kind of COVID. But prior to that, if I just click through this, I think we made up, yes, kind of action plan, kind of summaries. Now, prior to going for the kind of Digital School Awards, as others said, I spoke to other people that had already got the award. Very much a case of a friend at another school, call them up, or can you give me the details of your digital leader, have a chat with them, to kind of very much share ideas, share formats, trying to make life a little bit easier. And then we kind of started with this kind of idea of this kind of action plan. And some of the things on this we didn't achieve in that year. So you see they'll kind of carry on to the following year's kind of action plan. So it was kind of appointed, create a policy, because suddenly it was like you need a digital learning policy. And we were kind of like, I don't know what that is. So let's go and create that. So it was little things like that. And again, trying to encourage your staff. I said this kind of all started pre-COVID. And at that time, we had quite a lot of staff who had like a fear of technology, is the only way I can phrase it. Still got a couple like that, but I'm slowly getting them on board, which is always quite nice. So as you can see, it started with just supporting staff and people to experiment with the kind of new technology, because Chromebooks were coming in, there was different login formats, and at this point we didn't use Google Classroom, we didn't really use Glow, like with Glow for email, but we had no classrooms or Seesaw up and running. We were pretty much exploring standard features, we were doing our internet safety and exploring a wee bit here and a wee bit there. Then of course COVID, and you were 2 days before school shut down. It was a case of we were all flung in a room and it was like, figure out what a digital classroom is. Okay, so it was sink or swim time, which I think in a kind of retrospect for this award was quite a good thing in terms of getting everybody was forced to be on board with it. So obviously the lockdown kind of came in. At that point, our school went Google Classroom P1 to 7, which for those that have ever tried to do that was a bit of a nightmare. Learning curve for us all. So had to do all the phone calls, support people getting on devices, especially with siblings, with shared devices, because we're all aware of if you're logged into a different Google account, you then can't get into somebody else's Google account, you need to sign out a Google account. All of that, all those issues I'm sure we've all experienced on a day-to-day probably still. So way back 2020, at this point, we weren't really thinking about the word, I'd heard about it, and I thought I'm just kind of sussing out what the school's like now, kind of post-COVID, because again, we came back, everyone was in our bubbles, we couldn't do things maybe we would ideally want to do, so we had to kind of make do with the situation we were in. So obviously, as I imagine all the schools did, we had all our home learning activities, and as people mentioned before, there were loads of examples of people creating videos and supporting children and learning and explaining things to parents. And again, it was all sorts of like exploring all the different ways to do that, how to record screens. So it was just exploring features of things that we already use. Folk were aware of how to use PowerPoints, didn't know that they could then do a recording of a PowerPoint. So it was all these wee skills, and many a phone call during, lockdowns of, Sarah, how do I do this? Can I get help with this? And very much just kind of staff came on board of everyone just tried to troubleshoot, as I imagine we all did at that point. So in terms of this, we kind of uploaded just videos. You can see it was just wee screenshots of us scrolling through all the kind of home learning, examples of evidence that the children had submitted online. I'm not sure if these are all going to work. So it was just children reading and wee examples of things that I'm not going to play all the videos for you, but kind of get the gist of, again, just want to kind of showcase the examples of us trying to get everybody on board. And again, trying to encourage parents and stuff to get on board with kind of more practical activities, especially during that time. Let me see if I can get this system. Oh, we're still going to still wants to play all the videos. There we go. Again, through lockdown, trying still to promote Digital Learning Week, which was a bit hard when we were sending them like more like Google Docs and stuff. It was less digital. Obviously, when we came back into school, it was a lot easier to do. But again, still trying to put that focus on it. as the kind of years went on. And then, of course, at this time, some of you have seen this as before, there was technology challenges and stuff. Again, that just kind of push to showcase these are the things that you can do, support parents at home to kind of broaden that awareness of actually we do these things, because there was a lot of activities, and again I found chatting to the staff of things that they did in class, but they just didn't realise, oh, that's digital learning, or that covers computational thinking, or this does that. They were just unaware. It was just a standard thing they did in class. So a lot of, I found the journey was just making folk realise, actually, we do this and you do that, especially those that were a bit tech shy. So again, these were just all the examples that we uploaded during kind of lockdown. Again, the following year, another action plan. At this point, we had updated some planners in the school. Obviously, COVID guidelines had changed. We then changed the format and decided Seesaw would be better for P1 to 3 in terms of being more easy to access, especially for the wee ones, especially with the kind of them trying to remember their Glow login and stuff. So we as a staff decided that we would then split the platforms being used, just to kind of make it a bit easier. So there was a lot of kind of guidance put in for supporting staff and learners and parents to use the different formats. Because at this point we found that upper school started to use Google Classroom more as a teaching tool, whereas we felt that Seesaw was getting used more as a communication tool, especially to begin with. So we found that the split worked quite nice, because we could get learners doing more digital work through Google Classroom and access it easier and upload things for them and their documents and stuff. We felt it was a bit easier and user friendly for them, and obviously good practice for going into secondary. So at this point we kind of made that split. And again, if you have a look at the action plan, there was things like more Chromebooks arrived, so new smartboards were getting installed. As other folk mentioned, they get new smartboards and stuff. We did the same. We updated our ICT suite, more laptops, of course, reinstalling all the printers, all the little tech things that creep up every now and again that becomes a little issue. But again, it was just trying to kind of suss out and monitor what was kind of going on in the school. We were then doing kind of virtual assemblies and things, and it was just trying to kind of, as I said, showcase actually this is all the stuff we do, because I think at the time a lot of people think this is loads of stuff, but we just tried to kind of document it in a kind of simple way. Again, kind of update here for kind of 2021, and then as I said, we split the platforms, which we still have them split just now. Again, COVID guidelines, we can still do homework online. We still do that now, because a lot of learners like to submit any homework digitally and on a jotter, but they have the choice there, because again, some parents find it easier with jotters, but we just give them the choice to whatever's going to engage them more. Again, still just spoke about when the second lockdowns, we had our little online videos to kind of support learning and reinforce concepts, whether it was maths or literacy. And again, I'm not going to play these wee videos of folk talking over it, but you kind of get the gist of, it was just little videos to support the learning. Oh, that's playing. Nope, we'll just skip that, so you don't need to listen to the talking. But again, we can see just trying to showcase what everybody does in the school. So it was things like primary 1 developing their skills, because again, primary 1's like, teachers are like, they don't do digital learning. I'm like, no, you do. So I was just I always champion it on and be like, you are doing it. It's just making people aware of what it is. Again, trying to encourage Mental Health Week. I'm always sending out the prompts to everybody. Here's ideas of lessons, here's links to things, all the stuff that Pam sends through, and I'm like, forward. And I think they just hate me now, because it's always just like, here's Sarah with another selection of things for us to do. But again, for the award, just kind of showcasing the variety of stuff. We spoke a lot about assistive technologies, because we've explored quite a few of these throughout the years in the school. Again, this could be updated now. At the time when we were applying for the award, these were the main ones that we were using. Again, other people have mentioned this, like the kind of dictation and stuff to help with reluctant writers and Avona stuff, and we've kind of had a lot of children if we use Clicker and stuff over the years. Again, it was just to kind of showcase, actually, we have all these technologies are there and they are used, but again, people just think of like, oh, they do that every day, but actually we're ticking that box, if you will. And then we kind of went on to the self-evaluation tool. So as I said, it took us a while before I actually wanted to apply for the award, because I wanted to kind of suss out how the whole school felt with regards to digital learning, because I thought it'd be very biased if I filled it in just myself, because I'd have been like, we're great at this and we're great at that. But I kind of did a questionnaire, I suppose, using the self-evaluation tool to the staff, just to kind of get an average of how we felt overall as a staff. I said we'd quite a reluctant couple of teachers that were just tech shy. So we did that and filled this in, and then as we kind of progressed kind of through the year, I would update this. And again, it would reflect in the action plans as well. You can see again, some things carried over. At this point, I think we made a working party because we wanted a kind of bigger focus on digital learning. Again, I think each year, I wrote I was applying for the Digital Schools Award. It never happened because I just kept pushing off because I wanted to do more and suss out things. At this point, I think we kind of reviewed like what digital learning might look like. Document that got released, so we kind of looked at that and broke that down to is kind of, I thought, more user friendly for our reluctant staff, if you will. So kind of something, here's a kind of list of straightforward looking activities that you probably already do, and it was just trying to kind of utilize things like that. And again, just keeping using Seesaw in our Google Classroom and just kind of building up people's confidence, I think, more than anything, in the staff, and just gathering the evidence, because there was a few things on the checklist at the time, like position statements and things like that we weren't quite sure of, and we had to kind of create and edit. But again, as I said, I spoke to other people that had the award to kind of get ideas off of them of how they included and how they worded certain things. So this just allowed to kind of give us the time to kind of create these things that probably once upon a time did exist, but we just weren't aware of. They kind of went on the back burner. And again, things like iPads were updated, and the usual reinstall printers again, and more updates of ICT equipment. Things like we had then decided we were going to invest in like Spheros and take desktop computers that were a bit temperamental, we say, in our ICT suite, and distribute them into classrooms, and try to kind of revamp so that we're equally kind of building up the technology in each classroom. It was mentioned before, one of the schools said that they were at a kind of like 1-to-2 ratio with tech in their classroom. We're probably not far off that, but in our school we've got a mixture of desktops, iPads, Chromebooks, laptops. Again, we kind of distribute it a bit more, like Chromebooks upper school, because obviously we have to log in with the Go email. That's a bit footery for the primary ones, more iPads down the school. But as the years gone on, we've kind of invested more into that. I said, because I'm the tech lover, I kind of hoard. I get like 5 running desktops, old school desktops, but I keep alive, and everyone's like, do you need more, Sarah? And I'm like, I don't have any plug sockets left, but I would take them. So I very much, as I said, I'm the one that kind of champions on all the tech, keep it, fix it. I'll help you reinstall it. With the internet's working, I'm the person that tries to save all the technology, just so we can utilise and get the kind of ratio more to like 1-to-2. But again, as I imagine most schools do, we can very much, go next door and be like, can I borrow your Chromebooks, your iPads, and you could get like a 1-to-1 if need be, would be doable. But again, as I said, the school, we're just kind of investing more money in different tech, and every year we'll kind of redistribute them. So we'll do an audit who's where. Like this year we went up a classroom, we went from 11 to 12 classes, so we then had to redistribute the tech again because there was a classroom that didn't have any. So we were just kind of constantly doing that and then tweaking things. And again, it was more software and apps came out. It was very much a case of kind of sharing good practice. I think we hear that phrase all the time, and very much of kind of started out as a formal thing where I would host, be like, anybody get something cool, let's get a cup of tea and a packet of biscuits, and we'll just sit and have a cup of tea, and we'll share some good websites, even if it's just in the staff room. Oh, by the way, have you heard of this? And everyone takes a wee note of it. So what started out was a kind of formal thing. Now we're very good at just dropping it into conversation at a staff meeting, or in your tea break, take a wee note of this, you'd find it really good, and you kind of know which websites somebody would be into. So again, this has just come from people getting more confident in it. So I said this was 2021, 22, and again, a couple of years we introduced digital leaders. Initially we did start out with per class based on COVID at the time, so we couldn't mix, so we thought it'd be easier to do digital leaders per class. We started with a kind of digital leaders questionnaire. Over the years, we've kind of found it's much easier for teachers to put in specific things they need from their digital leaders, especially with us using Seesaw in Google Classroom. So the infant teachers are looking for somebody that's competent with their Seesaw and they can support the others down there, whereas up the school, we might be looking for somebody that's more confident in coding or microbits or Spiros or Adobe or something like that. So we've kind of went less on the kind of questionnaire and went with, here's a couple of key criteria, and each teacher knows what they're kind of looking for in terms of tech support, if you will, in their classroom. So even our assigning the digital leaders kind of evolved since this point over the last couple of years. But again, we find it very kind of useful having our digital leaders, and as you can see here, they've got little pictures, they've got a display up in the ICT room to kind of give them a kind of, I don't know what's the word I'm looking for, like kind of sense of pride about the importance of their role. And again, things like digital leaders, they conducted an audit of the whole school, so they're all sent away their wee list and go and find out how much tech. Have you got headphones? Have you got laptops, iPads, printers, cameras, whatever it is? And they go away and they'll go and find that out, and we can work out what's broken, what we need more of, who's got, you know, they've only got a ratio of 1 to 4 devices per room, who's got a broken computer, can we get it fixed? So every year, 2 years, we do a wee audit of all the tech in the school. We also, at this point, we're in a partnership project with the Royal Society, and I included the information about this in the application because it was one of the kind of key things. It was a kind of, this one was about a kind of luge project, but it involved Glasgow Cali University, and again, this was just us bringing in more evidence. Again, I kind of wish there was a cap on the evidence because there was a lot of this I could have missed out now, but I just kind of wanted to showcase we had the Navy come in, and that's when we kind of experienced Spheros and the coding in that front, because at this point we had experienced it through like Hour of Code, Scratch, but then bringing in those same skills of block coding into using Spheros, and quite exciting how we could use it then for maths and different things. So we experienced that here, then we did buy in our own set. I think I'm going to click this forward and these are all going to play all the wee clips here, but again, this was just in a classroom. Is this going to play? Yep. And they're all controlling. And the kids love it. I'm just going to click through it just now because they'll just be them laughing. But even now, like trying to kind of continue that forward, we run citizenship groups every year, and one of the groups is always, at least one, if not two, are always kind of coding. So we're always keeping, whether it be Spheros or microbits or Scratch or something like that, like we're doing that every year. And the way our citizenship groups work, it's like mixed groups. So it will always be, with like P1 to not P1 to P7, you'll P4 to P7 in a mixed group, and then you'll have P1s to 3s in a mixed group. So everyone's getting to experience it and kind of teach with each other. And again, that's something we kind of continue doing. This slide here again is just kind of evidence in the project that we've done with Glasgow Cali and the university. Again, just want to evidence it. Again, here, we just wanted to talk about some of the CPD that I'd been on. So quite a few of the digital meetings that we'd been in, we kind of mentioned different things from green screen to paint drawings, coding, Chartpic, stop motion, Spheros. Again, because kind of wanted to showcase how we were then using that. So whether it be coding, green screen stuff, and again, a lot of this is used now, so we continued this. So even this week doing green screen stuff with children reporting about the assassination in World War I as a news report. So we get the green screen set outside the classroom, and it was kind of very simple, but it was a bit more engaging than us just sitting or getting the information or drawing a poster. They quite like getting up and how to change the backgrounds and all that. So it was again just kind of all these wee things, and as I said, I'm the person that likes to just play around with stuff and make it work, and then I go and tell everybody this is a dead easy way to do it. So again, just wanted to showcase what the kids could do. We then looked at taking art into ICT quite a few times. So folk wanted to do, they were doing Scotland's a topic, so they wanted to do any Macintosh inspired art. See how we could do it then digitally, so it wasn't always just paint, but again, just showcasing things people do. This actually was a TikTok I saw a good few years back, and it was a coding one, and it was great fun, and you can see in the picture here, I literally just drew out a grid on the carpet in the classroom with some chalk, and of course you get massive gasps from the children going, "You're drawing on the carpet," but it was just good fun. And we watched a video on the pattern that people were jumping, and they had to suss out what the code was, and it was interesting to get them watching. So it was that way of you're introducing to them like the importance of being able to read code versus just create code. But again, a nice wee fun activity. It wasn't laborious, and it was, as I said, it was just good fun. So then you had them all jump this wee code out, and again, it was just wee things that we were trying to just encourage people to do to kind of make it fun, and then just showcase, obviously, as our evidence for it. And then lots of kind of Lego first challenges and things that the school were taking part in. Again, I'm very much a STEM person as well, so I think folk just get fed up with me because I'm always like, there's a great thing we can do. So another couple of classes get involved in doing this, and they had to do the coding. So this was primary 2, primary 3 and the primary 6s. Again, bringing the coding into this STEM challenge where they get Lego and all that delivered to the school to take part in the challenge. And again, we got to keep it at the end of it, which was really good, but it was a great way to engage children, and even now it's still brought out and used again, so it's kind of like the kind of legacy of it, is, if you will. It's just another great resource to kind of have in the school. As I said, every year I kind of did an action plan, and this was again kind of updated. At this point, I think the working parties were redirected, so it was back to being just me. We kept with digital leaders. We were looking at Renfrewshire's digital literacy progression planners that Pam mentioned in the chat earlier, again looking at Seesaw and still facilitating Google Classroom, because by this point teachers were a lot more confident in the use of both tools. Still in supporting parents, as I said. We started, I said, we're doing the kind of how-tos for staff, so every now and again we just put a wee sheet up in the staff and was like, has anybody got anything they want to figure out how to do? And it can be as simple as like, one of the staff is like, how to get photos off my iPad, like something that's just something simple that frustrates the life out of them. So it could be something like that, or it'll be like, can you show me how to print screen from a laptop, or just something silly. And we just come round with a wee chat, we'll all bring our laptop, cup of tea, a biscuit, and you can just show each other, and every now and again we just fire one up and it'll be like, they want to know something else. And obviously, as we're saying earlier, everything's evolving just now. So we've got folk that are like, I want to look a little bit more at some of the AI apps and the AI platforms, and again, they'll kind of get added into sessions, or somebody's, I found a great sticker website or something. So as a staff, we're all a lot more confident in doing this. So it's very much an informal thing, like I said earlier, of a kind of how-to. ICT suite kind of constantly updated, and we're all rotated in. Each week, each class is rotated into our ICT suite where we've got a laptop per child. Equally, you can take them out of ICT if it's your slot. So I find sometimes I'll prefer to bring them all to my room. Again, more smart boards were installed. So at this point, all the smart boards in the whole school had been updated, and all the laptops for teacher laptops were then refreshed. And again, additional Chromebooks, iPads. I said we were investing more and more into the kind of technology. Again, promoting kind of digital literacy week, doing the live lessons. I'm going to look at these pictures here. This was one of the challenges I think I mentioned in the application for the Digital School Award. It was a challenge that overcame. My classroom at this point, we had 2 weeks of the school year where I had no electricity in the classroom. There was a technical fault, so it was literally, I've got a whiteboard, a chalkboard, and a marker kind of thing. And of course, it had to be in Digital Literacy Week, so I was like, right, how are we still need to take part in this? And I think I mentioned in our application, it was one of those things where like the whole school kind of came in, like my class, we were just dotting about, whoever was at PE, whoever was in ICT, whoever was somewhere else, we were just gate crashing their classroom so that we could take part. And it's something very kind of simple, but at the time we're just kind of like, you really feel how restricted, because how, me especially, as I said, because I like tech, when you kind of have to go back to basics, it was like, okay, like I literally have got one plug in the entire room that works. So it was quite an interesting one, but it was quite good. And again, as I said, the school were very much on board. So we were just jumping around whoever's class we were in primary 1 to do lessons. And again, just kind of taking part. And as I mentioned before, I'm very much just like to explore things. So we would take part in these lessons, and then I'd be like, right, we're doing that tomorrow and we'll bring it into our learning. So at this point, this lesson was about designing apps, and it was using Keynote on iPads. And it wasn't something we'd particularly kind of focused on, because our iPad numbers at this point, we knew no longer did class in a box. They were all kind of dispersed to the the lower school. So to kind of get them all back and then to show them how they can bring the features kind of essentially linking slides is what it is now, and they all designed their own apps. And then the children wanted to then kind of video how they were creating their apps, and they filmed it, and again we just wanted to showcase this as the evidence, and they got to design it. They had great fun doing it, but again this all started out as a design challenge that then created into Keynote, and it again repeated the same sort of thing, but not with iPads. We do it now on Google Slides, or we do it on PowerPoint, because essentially all we're, as I said, we're just linking slides, but we're finding now that we can then do it for literacy. So if you're finding evidence for a reading question, just link me to the slide. So it was a dead easy way to then use that skill and use it for a kind of different context, if you will, but it was the same skill, which I think they kind of found quite easy and quite kind of reassuring of, oh, I can do this, and they don't have to write out all the evidence they needed. So it was wee things like this. So if you don't do the digital literacy week stuff, it's very cool. I would highly recommend. But again, as I said, we just wanted to kind of showcase the different things. I think we're using Padlet in one of the pictures here. Again, we're using microbits. One other school's mentioned using microbits. Again, a great thing. Last year, we actually had the P7s were training all the other classes on how to use microbits. So we organised a training session where each stage from P4, I think we brought up, came in, and the P7s trained them on how to use microbits, how to log in, how to use the features, how to do it safely, how to disconnect and all that. And it was really quite cool. And again, I found it kind of gave ownership over to the children and built up their confidence in digital technology. And it's not just the teachers kind of standing there doing it. But again, that's because I'll sit there and I'll be like, right guys, we're having a go at how to do this. But again, works really, really well. And it's an easy way to kind of give responsibility over to classes and to your digital leaders. So this was just kind of showcasing that. Again,
Thank you,
bringing...
Sarah. I'm just going to say,
Sorry.
Sarah, we've actually run over now. I can see you've only got a couple of slides to go.
It's fine, don't worry.
Is there any kind of like points, major ones that you don't want to miss, if everybody doesn't mind hanging on for a couple of minutes on your final slides? If there's any points, that would be great.
I would just say, in hindsight, in terms of the evidence thing, you don't need as much as you think. I uploaded probably a ridiculous amount, so the cap's probably very, very good. I think confidence in your staff is probably a good thing. We found, and when it came to the meeting, I actually brought in one of the staff that were reluctant. They were kind of one of my people that didn't like tech. I actually brought them in. So she spoke about her own personal journey as a teacher and how she kind of developed technology. So things like that, I found were really, really good. But I did find initially when we were doing it, it was a wee bit time consuming uploading the evidence, but if there's a cap on it now, that should be a lot better. But I would say just ask people for their ideas and kind of what they've done. I've got my details on the last slide. I'm again happy for you to kind of contact me and I kind of talk you through it. And obviously Malcolm said earlier about the actual validation process. It was really quite chilled, the only way I can put it. Initially going into it, you're obviously quite stressed wanting to prepare stuff, but it was actually really, really quite relaxed. The validator was really lovely. We chatted to myself, I said a couple of teachers that we had in, we had different children, 3s, 4s, different digital leaders in, and had a nice chat kind of with them, but it was very informal with them, which I thought was really nice. So the actual validation process itself is a lot more relaxed than what you think, but I think that the process to it can seem a little overwhelming, but after that point, the actual validation itself is really quite relaxed and actually kind of, it's probably the easy part at the end is having the chat with your validator. But yeah, sorry for waffling on.
No, not at all. It's been really interesting. And I think it's just like going through your slides, letting people see what, you know, the process that you went through. And I really like the fact that you started way back and said, look, we started this journey and, you know, we didn't actually apply for it for a few years. And I think people will find that really reassuring, that it's the entirety of the journey that you've been on. So thank you. I'm going to throw it open and see if anybody has any questions. Thank you so much for putting your email and offering to be contactable. That is so important. I'm just going to pop into the chat a wee evaluation form and I'll share my screen in a minute once you've scribbled down Sarah's contact details for that. And then I'm just going to open it to Michael.
Hi Pam, is there any sort of, I don't hate to use the terminology, but sort of waggles for kind of the digital policies and things like that? Because we're not too sure in regards to where that's kind of starting, if there's any examples.
Yeah, so again, in that team that I mentioned earlier, we had some examples shared of people's kind of digital policies and stuff. Part of what I'm working on just now is a kind of general refreshed digital policy across the authority. So I would definitely reach out to some of the others, some of the presenters here today. So some good examples out there that you can definitely share. I'm
Cool.
all about sharing.
Thank you.
Fabulous. Alrighty, well, I'm just going to pop up the QR code for those of you that have a phone and just want to fill that out. And I'm going to finally thank everybody for all of our presenters and everything that we did today. I'm going to hand back to Malcolm to see if there's anything else he wanted to add.
Yes, just to thank you very much and encourage those that are signed up just now or watching this on recording, because some of you might be, please do sign up. Even if it's only starting the journey, you will be surprised, I'm absolutely certain, at just how much you're already doing and going for the award, whichever award you think. And one of the things that I didn't mention right at the beginning, but worth saying it now, you can do the awards in any order. You don't have to do the main award, keep calling it the main award because there's not a better word for it. The Digital Schools Award, the original award, you don't have to do that first. You can do the digital wellbeing, you can do the equitable creative coding, whichever one you think you're at that stage and ready to do, you can do that first, whichever one it works. So thank you very much indeed for your time today.
Thank you, Malcolm. I suppose I would just add to that, I have a couple of schools who said they went for them together. So they went for the Digital Schools Award at the same time as the digital wellbeing because they felt they were gathering the evidence anyway. They knew they had it, so they just went for them. So that's another option for everyone as well. Fabulous. All right, well, I'm going to stop the recording now. There we go. And